Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That's not Alan Saunders, folks. Once again, we are graced. It is Farabaugh Friday. Nick Farabaugh from the site joining us. Nick, what's going on?
What's going on, Smitty? It's always good to be on the afternoon drive, of course. And I'm on here often on Fridays, just like Larry Ogunjobi, I show up on Fridays to practice. And, you
There
know,
you go.
there's no really alliteration I can use for me other than Faribault Fridays.
Mhm.
Limited Larry is much better than that, but our work-life balance King Larry Ogunjobi yet again. No injury designation. Smitty, he's playing.
Same. I feel like we could potentially see something with this Darnell Washington knee thing similar, throughout now. Like, is he going to be DNP Darnell or
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of something for him as well because I think that could be a similar situation for them the rest of the year.
I think day to day Darnell, something like
Day to
that,
day,
right?
yeah.
Like day to day Darnell. It's good. I like these things, but I don't know if any of them is going to beat Limited Larry.
Limited Larry's good, and
Limited Larry Ogunjobi.
but like you said, he's gonna be good to go. Unlike James Daniels, Pressley Harvin both rolled out for this game. James Daniels dealing with that's his groin
Yeah,
injury,
going.
and Pressley Harvin dealing with a hamstring, which obviously that cannot be very comfortable for a punter. So both of them have been rolled out. Nate Herbig going to see his first action, make his debut for the Steelers, brought in this offseason. Feels like this is kind of like the situation that he was brought in for. The Steelers offensive line, very lucky last year to be able to run with the same five the entire year. Was going to be hard to replicate that in 2023. And then Brad Wing, old friend Brad Wing, back in the fold, will likely be elevated from the practice squad to kick or to punt for the Steelers on Sunday and also do the holding for the field goal unit. Nick, what can we expect from Nate Herbig? I mean, this is a team looking to get something going on the ground. Nate Herbig, a very good run blocker on the offensive line. Is this maybe something that, while unfortunate that we're losing Daniels for at least one game here, could maybe, give us a little bit of a step in the right direction in the run game?
Yeah, I think it's going to be different too. I don't think you're going to see as much zone this week. Pulling guards, gap stuff. That makes more sense to me. That's kind of what Herbig is. He's a mauler, man. He might even be a better run blocker than James Daniels is. Daniels is more finesse athleticism, while Herbig's this big, powerful dude that in a phone booth can destroy guys, which I like to say that is a perfect representation of like duo, um, counter, power, different things like that. So I expect to see some more diversity in the run game. I have full confidence in Nate Herbig to give them solid enough play to really stay afloat in this thing. It's not like to me a catastrophic loss. Now, obviously, I think you'd rather have James Daniels out there, especially for a unit that has not fully gelled yet. It looks like is still trying to figure things out, but this is, I think, a fine alternative. I don't think that Nate Herbig is some elite player, but I think he's a good spot starter. I think he's proven that over the years with the Jets, with Philly, and I certainly think that they have intentionally signed guys like him to make this a really solidly made team in terms of the depth. I think they have focused on trench depth. Obviously, that trench depth is paying huge dividends on the defensive side of the football. We have seen that. They
Mhm.
attacked that side with a vengeance, and look at what it has done for them. Even without Cam Hayward, the pass rush is still extremely good. And the run defense is even starting to figure it out. Offensively, now let's see what that can do. I think Nate Herbig obviously is a big addition for him. Top backup at all three spots. I'm interested to see what Brad Wing does. Just a very
6 years,
interesting.
man. Six
Yeah,
years since he's been in the NFL.
yeah, 6 years since he's been in the NFL. Now he did punt in the XFL this past year. I believe it was the XFL, and he was the per punt. I think punt yards leader. So he was the best punter in that league by far. And so he gets back in, man. I mean, listen, they tried out like six other punters, and he won the tryouts, so he must have shown something. I'm not quite sure what we're going to see from him, but it really, I think, sucks for Pressley Harvin. It really
Yeah.
does. The best two-game stretch of his career, easily. I mean, we're talking about a guy that you could easily have made the argument in terms of punting. he was the best punter in the NFL the last 2 weeks. I mean, that is legitimately how good he was. He was an elite punter, and they punt a lot, so I mean, it mattered, right? Like,
Yeah.
a lot of the field position battles that they had against the Raiders and the Browns were because of Pressley Harvin, and they won a lot of those, which allowed TJ Watt and the pass rush to really pin their ears back, get back there. Weren't no really short fields either, which really helped out that defense, and it kept the offense, I think, at a really good pace because even against the Raiders, how many times were there punts? Then the Raiders went 3 and out, then a decent return by Austin or a short punt, and then the Steelers got 3 out of like 20 yards on offense. Like, I think
Hmm.
that's something to take into consideration too. So I think Pressley Harvin, man, it's a tough blow for Press. He's had such a good start to the year. They kept the faith in him, right? Like, a lot of teams probably would have moved on from Pressley Harvin by now. And the Steelers were like, we think the talent's there, and he was rewarding them. So that hamstring injury in your kicking leg in
Yeah.
particular is tough because he hasn't done anything like this week. Just walking
Hmm.
around, you know what I mean? That's all he's done. And there's nothing he can really do because you can't play the guy and he re-injures his hamstring and you don't have a punter. Like, what are you gonna do? Elevate Brad Wing and play with 2 punters? Like, I mean, I guess you could do that, but you probably don't. So they gotta let that heal. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Pressley Harvin until Los Angeles. I think
Yeah.
makes more sense to hold him out through the bye week and kind of let him rest, and then he comes back in LA.
The hamstrings are so annoying, man. But like you said, I mean, special teams have been a big part of why they've gotten wins in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, the splash plays that they've gotten on defense and some explosive plays on offense as well have been a part of the equation. But I think special teams has been a huge factor there. And not just Pressley punting the ball, but also as the holder. There was one that maybe you don't see in real time, but there was a not very good snap against Cleveland that he was able to get set for Boswell to hit the field goal. And, things like that go unnoticed. Will they go unnoticed if Brad Wing makes a mistake? No. So, we'll see what Brad Wing looks like in that role. I almost feel like that's why he was the guy that they decided out of the ones they brought in, because Brad Wing was doing that as well when he was here in the past. I'm not sure that every punter that they brought in, they trust to hold as well. So I wonder if that maybe gave him a leg up as well in the competition.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I'm not going to say it was like everything to
Yeah.
them, but
Hmm.
I'm sure it didn't hurt. I'll say that. Holding is like one of the very underrated parts of this entire thing, right? Like, why did they bring in a guy that they have such familiarity with, and a veteran, by the way, that has held before? So listen, there might be better pure punters out there than Brad Wing, but are they
Yeah.
going to have as many good holds? I've also seen a few really good holds from Press this year. Like,
Yes.
Christian Kuntz has been a little bit over the place at times this year. I'll say that. And I feel like it's been pretty masked because Press has just been so good at laying down those balls for Chris Boswell. And so we'll see. I think that you got to make sure you have that smooth operation going.
Hmm.
So we'll kind of see where Wing is at this point. But really good story for Brad Wing, who has come back from
Yeah.
substance abuse and is now back at his dream and in the NFL. It's a really good story for Brad Wing. Good for him to be back here, working back hard. And listen, this is not like a good story. Throw the life vest out to a guy. Like, he was really good this spring. He was, like, as I said, best punter in the XFL by far. So it
Hmm.
definitely, he had tape out there and got a tryout and clearly crushed the tryout enough to me to where he earns that.
Yeah, and it could be like we're talking about more than 1 week here in Pittsburgh, and maybe he parlays that into an opportunity elsewhere. You have to think the Steelers will turn back to Pressley Harvin when he's healthy, but maybe Wing gets an opportunity elsewhere for what he's able to do here. Pivoting back to Herbig, the offensive line. I've mentioned the struggles that they've had there. I want to get an update on our boy that we haven't talked about in a while. The Steelers spent the 14th overall pick on Broderick Jones. The offensive line has been struggling. Where are we at with that? Like, let's get a temperature check. Is there a possibility if this offensive line continues to struggle sooner rather than later that Broderick Jones does get inserted into this lineup?
It's hard to say, but I think so. Um, Listen, Dan Moore's not played well in pass pro. As a run blocker, I think he's been fine. But the pass pro has been so bad, man. It really has. And sooner rather than later, I'm worried Kenny Pickett's going to knock it up. And I think that is exactly what you can have Right when he's starting to get his legs out, his legs were out from under him the first 2 weeks, and then starting to find it again against Las Vegas. I'm going to still call them Oakland, apparently.
I've done it so many times.
I've done it 20 times, but against Vegas, starting to get his legs out from under him. I really think, he's starting to get that confidence back. And so that would be the worst thing, but Moore just not played well enough. And I don't even know if Broderick Jones is like a necessary, like huge upgrade in pass pro. I've talked about how raw I think he is, but he's a young guy with so much talent. And he's a really good run blocker. Like, I know he's ready to go as a run blocker. He's a plus run blocker. In space, he is an animal. He would be the best blocker in space on the team right now if you threw him out there. Look at the Georgia tape. He was killing guys on Alabama and Ohio State and whoever else they played last year. It was comical how good he is in space. And I would rather, at this point, if Dan Moore cannot play at a higher level to where he shows, to me, he can be better than Broderick Jones right now. Because I mean, listen, he's playing so bad right now. I think Broderick Jones could be better in all areas than he is right now.
Yeah. Right.
So if he can't show that consistently and take a leap forward, like why would you not play Broderick Jones, who is going to take some lumps, but man, he's the future left tackle of the team. Like, let him just take those lumps. He's a rookie. It is what it is. I know they're trying to guard, I think, some of their young guys. We've seen the same thing with Benton and Porter and even Herbig. But let the man cook if the other guy isn't showing it enough, because there's no reason to play Dan Moore if he's not an upgrade over Broderick Jones, and I'm not sure he is right now.
Well, that was the whole point, right? Was like Dan Moore is going to be the starting left tackle because you don't want to get Kenny killed. The problem is with how bad he's playing, you're in that situation anyway right now. Yep. So, yeah, I mean, I think that I'm at the point where I would be playing Broderick Jones. I think the earliest that it could happen, and I don't know whether you agree with this or not, would be, the bye week. I think maybe you make that switch going into the following game. But, we'll see. And that's, again, assuming health, because one injury happens and obviously he would be thrust into the lineup. But I think if we see poor play this week and Ravens week, they could make that switch before Rams week after the bye.
It could happen. I think that is the likeliest kind of outcome. I mean, listen, they threw Kenny Pickett into the shark waters.
Yeah.
Like after halftime. I still look back at
very
that
unexpected.
That was the wrong way to go about it, right? I still don't agree with it, but they did it. So they could do it at some point, just out of the blue, but I don't like, there's nothing like that indicates to me, like right off the bat, like, oh, they're starting to split reps. Like, it's coming at some point. Like, it's not really what's happened. So I think they'll give it to him if Dan Moore continues to go downhill. Maybe after the bye. I think that, or I think the other natural launching point would be after the Titans game, which is a Thursday night game where they have 10 days until they play the Packers.
2 Thursday night games this year, which, by the way, I'm sure that we know the players love. Let's talk about, okay, so, the reason that we're talking about this, we've talked a lot about the offensive line. There's, the run struggles. Like we were talking about the pass protecting struggles. They haven't been able to run the football either. They were recently put into an article on a list of teams that have inquired about Colts star running back Jonathan Taylor, one of 7 teams on that list. Now, again, I actually believe that same list was put out at some point in training camp. So when they inquired, don't know. Are they still interested? Don't know. But Nick, does this make any sense to you for the Steelers to be interested in Jonathan Taylor?
Well, it does on some level, but like not in like that's a likely thing. I know Destin Adams, and he is the guy that reported this at HCZ Sports. He's a legitimately plugged in Colts insider. It's not like some guy that just came off the street and made a random list. He was the first one to report that Isaiah Rodgers was going to get suspended. So he has sources in that building. He was the first to report that they were leaning Anthony Richardson over everybody else. He has legitimate sources. So I'm sure the Steelers did reach out. I just don't think it's anything beyond hey, Chris Ballard, what's the price on him? Because I remember Howie Roseman on New Heights with Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey talking about his trade kind of logic. And it's like, if I don't check in on every trade and see what the price is, I could leave a great deal for our team that could be an upgrade on the plate, right? Okay, maybe the Colts are willing to trade Jonathan Taylor for a very cheap price, and the Steelers would want to do that trade because it wouldn't cost him a ton, even if they had to pay him a contract. I think it's malpractice not to check in on what the price is because listen, right now we think it's going to be a McCaffrey like deal, maybe even more than what Christian McCaffrey kind of brought. That's not tenable for the Steelers. But if it's like a 4th-round pick, like at that point, I think you have to think about it. Now, obviously, I think running back is like the least of their needs. I think Najee and Jalen Warren are good 1-2. And if you put the issues in the run game and you ranked them all, those two would be dead last, period. Jonathan Taylor isn't going to do a ton more to kind of maximize it with the run game struggles, but he is a guy that I think is in that short tier of running backs who matter, like that can just change an offense and can kind of bring them up. But it doesn't make sense because you have to imagine right now with what we know, Jonathan Taylor's not going to play without a new contract. One, he's not going to play for a new team without a contract. He might play for the Colts this year without a new contract. He's not going to play without a new contract, so you have to pay him probably resetting the market or at least getting up to CMC money. You have to give up a CMC like package or more. So that was what a 2, a 3, and a 4, I think, right? Or something even more than that. So that's a lot
I
of.
thought it was 4 picks, but yeah something similar.
Might have been 2/3 or something. But it's a lot of draft capital, and then you also have to somehow convince yourselves that is a upgrade that needs to be made. Like, I just don't think it's tenable right now for them to give a big contract to a running back 1, for them to trade lots of assets for a running back, and then for 3, like if he does come, okay, you probably have to send back Najee Harris in that deal, I assume. So you're probably trading Najee Harris. Does he actually make like a huge difference with what your team looks like right now? I don't know if he does.
I don't think so.
I mean, I'm sure he would upgrade the offense to a degree, but if I were to make a splash trade with the Steelers right now, and I don't believe this rumor either, but it is a rumor out there because his dad complained on Twitter after the Broncos got blown out. Patrick Surtain would be a great trade candidate. Right? Now, I don't think the Broncos have any reason to trade Patrick Surtain, but a great young corner is exactly the type of splash move the Steelers should be making. If a wide receiver came on the market that was young enough and could give them an upgrade and could create a 3-head monster with Pickens and Deontay Johnson, that's a move you should look into. A tackle. Like, those are positions you should be looking into. I just don't understand I love Jonathan Taylor, the player, but he's also coming off an injury. We haven't seen him play football yet. I just don't know why that makes sense. And so I'm sure they have checked in, but I think it was nothing more than a due diligence call.
Yeah, which again, Omar Khan just doing his job, as were 6 other GMs that were listed amongst those teams.
The Steelers have also placed calls for Mike Evans. Probably. We've heard those trade rumors, I'm sure. I'm sure they've checked in on all of those guys.
Yeah, if Patrick Surtain maybe as soon as his dad put something out, I'm sure Omar was like, "Hold on, is this real?"
Yeah, I don't know.
Let me send a call over to Denver.
I just think Andy Weidel carries a lot of the similar sentiments that Howie Roseman does. When you hear him talk, he has a lot of similar ideas and how he approaches GMing, and I'm sure Omar kind of also has that. We've seen how aggressive Omar is at filling holes on his team. So, I mean, I think every single trade partner that they could have, they probably call. So don't read too much into Jonathan Taylor. It's a nonsensical idea. It doesn't make any sense.
Speaking of nonsensical, Colin Cowherd, TJ Watt, George Pickens, 3 first-round picks in order to secure USC quarterback Caleb Williams in the 2024 NFL draft. There we go. There's the answer to all the Pittsburgh Steelers problems right there.
I think that is so that's so over the top.
Like, what was on his mind when he's just sitting there in studio on TV, live television? It was like, "Yep, I'm going to say this." This is
Yeah,
about to come out of my mouth.
I have no clue what he was thinking when he said this. It's a wild. I don't even think a team at first overall would require all of that to let the Steelers up there.
No, I'm not
Like,
saying that, like, okay, again, we're talking about Caleb Williams as opposed to, Bryce Young, CJ, the guys that were in the mix this year, but the Bears just went from 9-1 this year.
you're
And
talking like, dude, they traded DJ Moore, who is a really good player, but like, let's say if the Steelers finish in like the top 10, they are not going to have to give up TJ Watt, George Pickens, and 3 firsts to move up. Like, that is not, they might have to give up Pickens and 3 firsts. Like, that might be something they have to give up. But like, TJ Watt alone is going to give like most of that. They don't need to give up all of that. What Colin Cowherd just proposed is setting Caleb Williams up to fail. Like, you're trading one of his top receivers, the best defensive player that the team has, plus 3 first-round picks, so you can't invest anything in the future of that. Like, it makes no sense. None. Like, absolutely 0 sense at all. And I think the Panthers are even showing you a little bit right now. Like, Bryce Young's fighting, bro. Like, he's got an ankle injury already. Like, doesn't have a top target to really throw to without DJ Moore. It's tough sledding for Bryce Young right now. I love Caleb Williams. I think he's an awesome quarterback prospect. I love the idea if they get into like a similar range that the Panthers were at to actually maybe move up and go try and get him, like make a run there. But I do not give up Watt, Pickens, and 3 firsts. That is absurd. That is too much. Quarterbacks matter a lot, but that is intentionally setting back your franchise too far to me. I just,
yeah,
you got to give the quarterback a good foundation to work with. I just, now they would have some of a foundation at that point, I guess, because you would have still Deontay Johnson, Pat Fryermuth, and those guys. But man, you are really setting
Jonathan
the team
Taylor.
back. And I don't think Mike Tomlin would ever take that.
Patrick Surtain would be on the team.
Yeah,
Yeah, they'd have a good
like,
foundation.
I don't think like Mike Tomlin would ever
No,
okay the group with
absolutely
trading
not.
away all of that. And I don't know. Like, there's ballsy and then there's stupid. I think that's stupid.
And I'm not advocating for this, but again, to your point where it wouldn't require all that, say it were Pickens and 3 firsts. If you're going to throw TJ, put him in a separate trade to recoup some of that draft capital that you gave up in that deal or something, like you can't, giving up all that for just the number 1 pick to me would be egregious.
It's too much, man.
Again, like this is a conversation for us to have. There is 0% chance that this conversation would ever take place within the Pittsburgh Steelers room. So that's where we're at with it.
It's we're getting closer to the trade deadline, so don't expect this to be the last guy. I'll say that.
Yeah, nope. Well, now we just gotta, now that we've talked about Patrick Surtain as well, that's going to spark that as an actual thing. I want to talk about the Texans defense a little bit. We haven't spent a whole lot of time on it. They got Will Anderson in there, who they traded up for. They took CJ Stroud 2 overall and then moved back up to 3 to select Will Anderson. Looks like Jalen Pitre will be back in the fold with them. Really nice safety duo with him and Jimmy Ward, who DeMeco brought over with him from San Fran. I look across that defense, though, at all 3 levels, not a ton of star power, but their defense, isn't playing bad. I think DeMeco, his defensive mind has got them playing in games here. Nick, what do you think about this Texans defense and how they match up with the Steelers offense?
I think the Steelers offense should be able to move the ball. Listen, without Stingley and Xavier Thomas, who are 2 really solid.
Thomas is an underrated. Yeah, Thomas is
he's really good. And Stingley is a nice young corner. They still have Steven Nelson, but Shaq Griffin is the starting corner. Not very good. Nelson is 31, I think now. Been around. He's still solid, but he's a 2 more than he is anything else. Like Pickens should be able to win that matchup. And if Austin's on him, I have Austin Speed winning that one. I'd like the safety duo, but Jimmy Ward isn't the Jimmy Ward He's a very heady veteran now, but he is not peak Jimmy Ward. Jalen Pitre is a stud. I wonder where they play Jalen Pitre. I wonder if they play him in a nickel with Thomas out, or if they keep him at safety. I don't know where they're going to kind of play him at. But the Steelers should have an advantage here. The linebacking core is young without Denzel Perryman, who's also out. They got Cashman, Christian Harris, I believe, and Henry Toto. Um, who, I mean, that's a young core, but I just feel like the defense right now is very reliant upon Will Anderson and Jalen Pitre. Like I just do. It's if they can't run the ball in this one, they'll never be able to run the football. Like up front, the Steelers should win this one, even without James Daniels. I like Malik Collins, but Jerry Hughes is kind of, finally seeing, I think, Father Time catch up to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
the Texans right now rank 28th in rush and EPA per rush. That is not good, folks. If the Steelers, I think, have found a decent bit of success running out of spread looks, 11 personnel. I think that's kind of a bridge they can use. I think they should run more gap concepts, get power out here, get some duo going more. Let's spread the menu around a little bit. Let's not just run inside zone and stuff like that. Spread them out, run different things like that. And I think you can really cook against this Texans defense. Now, they play more zone than man, which is going to be interesting because we have not seen the Steelers play a super zone heavy team. Really, I mean, even the 49ers played a lot of man against them.
Mm-hmm.
And the 49ers do play a lot of zone, but it was a lot of man when they played. So I expect a lot of zone from DeMeco Ryans, quarters, cover six, different things like that. So it's going to be a different type of game. Kenny Pickett's going to have to reel himself in, take what they give him. It's going to be slow, methodical drives. They're going to have to be really good in the red zone. So their offensive line is going to have to get some push up front, going to have to convert. So, I mean, the Steelers, I think, are going to get some yards in this game. I think they'll be able to do that. But it's going to be, can they finish drives? And I think that's going to be the biggest thing because I could see them getting a lot of when we saw this last year, towards the end of last year. Remember when they were putting up yards on the ground and driving down, but it always ended in 3 instead of 6, right? Always ended in 3. Got to convert those 3s into 6s.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely a good point. Even if they rack up the yards, can they finish drives? That's going to be the biggest question. That's what I've always said. I don't want to divert the conversation towards Canada too much and stuff like that. But there's obviously, people have given him grief every single weekend for the play calling, the scheme itself, things like that. I just don't think he has answers in the red zone for NFL defenses. That's been my personal biggest gripe, other than obviously, like, once Allen brought it up to me, you look at his track record with quarterbacks, really hasn't developed a guy. And Kenny's going to have to be the first one for the Steelers to be successful. But to your point, when you look at, the red zone, when things minimize, or I guess when the situation maximizes and the field minimizes, how do you feel like things change for the Steelers offense?
It changes a lot, but I think they have a personnel that should be able to win in those areas. There's nothing really crazy about what this Steelers offense does that shouldn't be able to work there, right? They have a very powerful guy in Najee Harris who should be a plus. Jalen Warren has enough strength to really get out those yards, and Pickett's generally accurate enough with 2 tight ends, by the way, 2 big tight ends plus George Pickens, who's basically always open. So it should work. I just the scheme, man, the passing schematics are not good. And even in the red zone, you feel like Canada has to run all these, very lopsided bunch sets. So you have like 10 guys in the box and you can
Mm-hmm.
spread them out a little bit. It's okay. Trust me. It's
Yeah.
okay. Do that a little bit. And so, yeah, I think the red zone's a question. I thought it was a question last week where the Steelers started to get going a little bit more, right? A little bit more throughout kind of the game, but they settled for 3 a lot. Now, some of those weren't in the red zone. They were even further out than that, but really 30 in, I need to see the Steelers do more because I think the Texans are going to be able to take away their explosive plays. I'm not sure we're going to see a Calvin Austin, 72-yard touchdown, a George Pickens 71-yarder this week. We might see Pickens get like 10 receptions this week, and that's very realistic to me. So start George Pickens if you're in PPR, but I will say that I believe that they're going to have to convert, and the way the Steelers lose this game is either, I think the likeliest way, because they could turn the ball over and stuff like that too, and that could doom
Mm-hmm.
them. But I think the easiest way they lose this game is They allow explosive plays on the defensive side of the ball, to where Stroud and Dell and Collins and those guys can get explosive plays off of them, and they have coverage busts on the back end, and they can't convert threes into sixes. I think that's the biggest way they can lose this game.
Yeah. The Texans, by the way, have not allowed a 100-yard rusher or 100-yard receiver so far through 3 games. We will see if that changes on Sunday. Nick, last thing that I want to bring up is a question from one of our listeners here, Joe Aber. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments how to pronounce that so I get it right, because you've been supporting us basically since the jump, and we appreciate you. Kenny makes great throws in motion, looks more comfortable doing so. How could they legitimately, as an offense, work that in more to get him in the best position?
It's tough because you don't want to condense the field to one side a lot. So the sprint outs that you see a lot, if you watch any JT O'Sullivan, you know how much he hates the sprint outs. I don't hate him as much, but they are, you can't use them a ton, right? It's 2 or 3 play calls a game, and they worked really well against the Raiders. Bootlegs, I think, is the best way you can get Kenny on the move.
Yeah.
I like what they're doing there. I think that's a great way to do it because it's play action. It gets Kenny moving out of the pocket. It gives you 3 options at different levels. And I think Canada's bootleg like passing game is pretty expansive. Like he has a nice bootleg passing game with route trees, and they have really good guys that can win at all 3 levels. So you have kind of different players slot in there. I think another way they can do it is out of the shotgun where they have those play actions, and Kenny can roll a little bit or slide a little bit. They can have moving pockets. I think that's something like they almost hit on a big play to Calvin Austin on one of those, where he kind of slid out of the pocket. He just kind of missed it a little bit under pressure. So I think there are different ways they can do it. I don't think Kenny should be doing a ton of design quarterback runs or anything. He's athletic, but like it's not really where Kenny shines. I want to see them do more quarterback sneaking. I think that is something they should be doing more on those 3rd and 1s instead of fullback trap to Connor Hayward. Push.
Yeah.
Get the tush push going, man. Trust me. Put Najee Harris and Darnell Washington behind him, and I bet that'll be like 100% success rate. They would easily get most of their 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s done if that happened. So, I mean, the mobility part, it's hard to fully get it going, but the schematic ways to do that are also quite limited. But the bootleg game is the biggest way to do it. The sprint outs, maybe. I also just think getting better protection for Kenny will help that part of his game, because I think if you can protect him a little bit more, he'll trust his offensive line. And when he trusts his offensive line, you kind of get him in a nice little rhythm of when to go and break play. And I think he does a really nice job out of structure. I love Kenny's out of structure game. I think he's good throwing on the run. I think that's one of the best parts of the game, but I think he relies upon it a little too much. And I think we've seen that early on in the season. So better protection allows him to stay in the pocket, which can really make, in my opinion, a guy that breaks plays and has those extended plays even more dangerous. And I think that's kind of what they had at the end of last year, where Pickett was confident enough in his O-line to make some plays in structure. But when he felt like it was time to make a play, he did it, and he did it at a high level. So I think there's some personnel things that need to come along better. I think Kenny needs to get a little bit more confident. But I also think that the bootleg game just has to keep coming along. Use those bootlegs, man. They were killing the Raiders on Sunday.
Yeah.
Bootlegs.
Well, I think this question a lot is in part due to that one drive. Steelers are up 16-7. They go down to make it 23-7. But on that drive, I feel like you almost saw the ceiling of what this offense could do. Like it was just perfect, in my opinion, in terms of they used the bootleg. They had some pre-snap motion that they actually had a passing play off of. They threw to the middle of the field. They did a lot of play action stuff. They blocked well out in space on a little screen to Jalen Warren, where Calvin Austin comes around the other end of that just to, kind of dress it up a little bit, with the drive finishing with the Pat Fryermuth touchdown where Kenny's out on a bootleg. So I feel like, to your point, I think the bootleg probably is the best option there, but I feel like this question was largely in part due to that one drive and just what it looked like for the Steelers offense.
Yeah, I'm sure it was in part because of that. And listen, they had great success on that, building off one another. But they can have better success just through many different other things through, the spread out runs that I talked about earlier, where this run game can get going a little bit more. You talked
Mhm.
about passing concepts that I think that they can work off of. I think they can build a more robust passing game. I want to see more man beaters. I want to see George Pickens get more deep targets. I want to see different things like
Oh,
that.
dude, they could have hit so many double moves in
Oh,
this game against the Raiders. I mean,
they
those
tried
guys
one.
were, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I was like in my basement, literally on my hands and knees, praying for them to do it because Marcus Peters, Hobbs, they were triggering down,
yeah.
knowing what they were looking for, and they could have hit him with a double move. And yeah,
Well,
I mean,
listen,
eventually they did.
they did hit Marcus Peters with a double move. It was the
Yeah.
Connor Hayward play where he goes out and up, and Kenny thinks he's going
Hmm.
to go there and nearly gets a pick six. So they did hit him with it, and I think I would imagine that was on Hayward where he was just supposed to break,
I
and that
don't
play
think
was
so.
supposed to set up for a play later on where he would go out and up, but that miscommunication kind of sunk that. But they probably should have hit one with George Pickens or Calvin
Yeah.
Austin at some point. I wonder why they didn't come back to that. This is probably not a game for them though, because as we said, just the right, Texas play back and in zone, more quarters coverage. But if you get the right look in quarters, maybe you can get a Steven Nelson on the outside, isolate or something. Maybe you get the right look and you can do that. But probably not in this game. I think the Ravens, that could definitely be something they bring out though.
Nick, real quick before you tell the people where they can find you, you got to give me a prediction for Sunday.
24-17 Steelers. It's my prediction.
24-17. Okay. I not that I expect them to put up a ton of yards. I think that I said they're going to win the field position battle again. I think this is the week though. I think the offense cracks 30 to 20
Okay.
Steelers.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
feeling it.
Smitty throwing it out there.
Yep. All right, Nick, tell the people where they can find you.
All right, y'all can follow me at Farabaugh FB on Twitter. Also, make sure to read more at SteelersNow.com and the stores. Of course, subscribe to the channel too.
We are 50 subscribers away from 10,000 on the YouTube channel, which means at that point we are going to play that beautiful intro song that you guys hear and outro song every single episode. We're going to play the full version of that on the show when we hit 10,000 subscribers. So get us to 10K. Be sure to tell friends, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment down below. We'll read some of the comments on Monday when we come back. Leave your predictions down below too. We want to see what you guys think is going to happen on Sunday. And if you guys are listening somewhere that is not YouTube, leave us a 5-star review there as well. Nick, thanks for joining us once again for Farabaugh Friday. Thanks everybody for tapping in with us. This has been Steelers Afternoon Drive. Thanks for jumping in and taking another ride with us.